Today, I'm going to talk about self-care. It's very important that you consider how you manage yourselves during this current crisis. And really, that's what this is all about. It's about looking after yourself and making sure that you come out of this or get through this as best you can. So I'm going to talk about a number of things. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to talk about stress. And you will need a pencil and paper or pen and paper for that. We're going to do a bit of an exercise during that. So if you've not got some pen and paper handy, then please try and get one of those before we start that. I'm going to talk about doing a personal best. I'm going to discuss the 7 pillars of well-being. This is something that I've developed when talking to corporate clients about well-being strategy, but it's relevant for what we're talking about today as well. I'm going to talk about working from home. Some of you may not be used to working from home, although you've had a few weeks of it now. Just a few tips on how you can help yourself working from home. Dealing with isolation, because obviously we are sociable animals and we're not used to being in isolation. So we're just really talking some tips again about how you might deal with isolation. And then dealing with uncertainty. It's the uncertainty that's causing most anxiousness in us at the moment, because we can't predict what's going to happen. We can't forecast what's going to happen. We don't know the timings, we don't know the outcomes, we don't know anything. So that's the most difficult thing that we've got to deal with, really, and I want to talk about that. And then a bit about action planning. That's the agenda for today. So me, I'd like to talk about me. So I am a hotelier by background. I was general manager of hotels. Then I went into sales, became a sales director for some British UK companies. So I was director of sales for Best Western. I was director of sales for Swallow Hotels. I then went to Principal Haley as head of central services. I got made redundant from there when they moved the central reservations office to America. And when I got made redundant in 2013, I decided to start my own business, which was called Winning Edges. And Winning Edges still exists and is a business consultancy, predominantly on the sales side in meetings and events. So looking at sales development and conversion. Then about 2 years ago, I decided to go on a course to learn how to do mental health first aid. And I'm now a mental health first aid instructor. I do 3 sets of courses on behalf of MHFA England, which is mental health awareness, mental health champion, and mental health first aid. And they're varying between half a day and 2-day courses. And that's probably now about 60% of what I do. And because that's become a bigger part of the company, I've developed a new brand name. So Balancing Edges is the mental health side, Winning Edges is the sales side. So that's me. So I'm going to talk about the stress bucket. The stress bucket is a model that was developed by Gavin and Turkington in 2002. And how they describe stress is that everyone's got a stress bucket, and your stress bucket could be smaller or larger depending on your character. So we all know people who can take loads and loads of stress and strain and not show it and get through it. And we also know other people who are very easily stressed, and that's because they've got a small stress bucket or a stress container. So what happens, everybody's stress container at some point in time will overflow. And when that bucket overflows, it causes a problem. And that problem is what they call emotional snapping. Now, in my particular case, that literally is snapping. When I get stressed and my stress bucket overflows, I lose my temper, I get angry with people, I'm short-tempered, I'm very irritable, and that's how my stress container manifests itself. Other people, it could be withdrawn, it could be that they get lethargic, it could be all sorts of different things that people experience. But different people's emotional snapping will manifest itself in different ways. Now you'll see here there's a tap. Well, that tap is reflecting that you're looking for coping strategies. And those coping strategies will relieve stress. So what we want to try and do is we don't want to get to the stage where our stress container overflows and when we get to this emotional snapping stage. So we need to try and recognize in ourselves when we're starting to get overly stressed and use coping strategies. Now there are good coping strategies, which the tap is working and it lets the stress out. So that could be doing some of Tracy Bingham's very nice yoga. That could be doing something that you particularly like to do. It could be a number of things. In my particular case, I walk the dog. If I'm feeling particularly stressed, I go for a really long walk with the dog. He likes it, I like it. We get out in the fresh air. I can clear my head. I can see my way through my stressful situation and try and find a way to get through that. My wife, on the other hand, she does a journal. So every night she completes a journal of good things that have happened that day and things she's planning to do the next day. That's how she particularly deals with it. You might have 2 or 3 or 4 different coping strategies that you use, but you need to find those good coping strategies that work for you and relieve that stress before you get to the stage of the emotional snapping. Unfortunately, there is also bad coping strategies, and all they really do is add stress back into the bucket. I am going to mention, unfortunately, alcohol here. I think we're all probably using alcohol as a coping strategy at the moment. But if we use alcohol as a coping strategy, that might relieve things short term, but long term, all it does is put stress back in the bucket. In alcohol's case, it actually is a depressant. So all alcohol does is put more stress back in your bucket, unfortunately. So in moderation, it's fine. But obviously, if you're doing that too long, that's a problem, and that can cause added stress. So what I want you to do now, guys, is I want you to draw your own. Oh, sorry, I should just say here that overflowing, that emotional snapping, is something we want to try and avoid. So just try and get to the stage where you're being proactive about your coping strategies and not reactive. So what I want you to do now is I want you to quickly draw a stress bucket. So just get a piece of paper, draw a very rough bucket, and write into that stress bucket the things that are currently causing you stress. And there'll be things in there that probably aren't normally in there, things that you don't normally get caused stress by because of the fact you're now working from home, because of the fact you're isolated, because of the fact you've got family you can't see, friends you can't see. Those sort of things could be causing you stress that you don't normally have. And then you have, at the bottom there, you'll see helpful coping strategies and unhelpful coping strategies. So if you could put in there the sort of things you do to help yourself and the sort of things you do that are helpful and unhelpful. And then I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes just to do that. We're not going to discuss it. When I do this in my training courses, we do have a discussion about it. Obviously, in this format, it doesn't really work very well to do a discussion on it, and we haven't really got the time to do that anyway. So it's really a bit of self-reflection. And I'm going to come back to you in a couple of minutes and just tell you what I want you to think about with regard to those things that are in your stress container. As I say, some of those things will be new and fresh because of what's happening at the moment with the crisis. Other things will be things that cause you stress all the time, whether that's money, whether that's job security, whether that's financial matters, whether it's family matters. All sorts of things could be in there that normally cause you stress. So just give you a minute or two to do that. So hopefully you've all got some things in your stress bucket and some helpful and unhelpful coping strategies. And really what I want you to think about is the things that are in your stress bucket that you can control. So there are things that are in there that you can't change. And there's things that you can't change. For example, the last course I did, face-to-face course I did, somebody put in there that they get stressed by traffic jams. Now, you can't control the traffic jam, so don't get stressed about it. It shouldn't be in your stress container. I know that's easier said than done. I get stressed about traffic jams sometimes as well, but actually it's irrational because there's nothing you can do about it. You're stuck in the traffic jam. You can't contain it. So it shouldn't really be in your stress container. And things like that you can't control, try and not put in your stress container. Try not to get stressed about them. But that's the sort of thing that you might notice that are in there. So just have a look at that about that. And there should be really 3 categories. There should be those that have got a sort of practical solution, those that will get better over time, and those you can't do anything about. And really you should prioritize them and look at the things that you've got a practical solution for that you can do first. And you get it out of your stress container because you've done that thing, whatever that thing is. Okay, so that's really a bit of self-reflection. And that exercise, you could use that if you're a team manager. You could use that for your teams. You could use that in your family. It's really good to raise a discussion at a team meeting, to have a discussion about it. If people are happy to share. It's a really good way of getting people to talk about what causes them stress. And as a manager, you might learn something about your teams when you do that as well. So it is a useful exercise to use in everyday life rather than just at the moment. So 3 steps to take when you're feeling stressed. Realize when it's causing you a problem. So try to make the connection between feeling tired or ill or the pressures you're faced with, and look for physical warnings. So physical warnings would be things like tense muscles, sore back, constant tiredness. Those are the sort of things that you should realize that may be caused by stress, and try and be proactive and address that stressful situation before it gets to the stage that you're emotionally snapping. Identify the causes of your stress. We've just done that with your stress containers. So it's a really good exercise to do for yourselves on a regular basis as well, to have a look at what's in your stress container, see what things are in there, see what you can control, what you can't control, and prioritize them. As I say, there's really three categories, I think. There's those that have got a practical solution, there's those that will get better given time, and there's those things that you can't do anything about. You should prioritize the first one there, those are the practical solution, and get those things done. Those things that will get better given time, let them get better given time. And those things you can't do anything about, try and get them out of your stress container. You can't control them, they're not in your control, get them out of there. Review your lifestyle. So is there things you could be doing that you could be doing better? And we're going to talk about that when we talk about a personal best in a moment. But are you taking on too much? Are there things you should be doing which should be handed over to somebody else? Can you do things in a more leisurely way? And to act upon those questions, you might need to prioritize things you're going to achieve and reorganize your life. Try and get some quick wins in your life. Try and do things that you can do quickly so you're seen as a more positive aspect. Next thing I want to talk about is breathing. You might think that's a bit daft. We all breathe. Of course we all breathe. And I'm sure you've all heard about breathing exercises that are there to help you to relieve stress and anxiety. This is one I particularly like. It's really simple. It's called the box breathing exercise. It's also sometimes called the Navy SEAL method because the Navy SEALs in the US use this to reduce anxiety and stress. Very simple method. Basically, you breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds, you hold for 5 seconds, you breathe out through your mouth for 5 seconds, and you hold for 5 seconds. So I'm going to quickly just do that once with you. If you're going to do it as a breathing exercise, you should do it probably 5 or 6 times before it to have an effect. But what you'll find is it will lower your heartbeat, it will lower your blood pressure, it will increase the oxygen in your body and help the endorphins in your brain. So it really does very simply resolve a lot of issues in one simple exercise. So the box breathing exercise, we're going to quickly do it. I'll just talk you through it. So breathe in through your nose for 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold for 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out through your mouth for 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. And hold for 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, breathe normally now. That's just one go at it, but you can see how simple that is. And I think if you do that 4 or 5 times, I know if you do that 4 or 5 times, you might feel a little bit lightheaded, but it will certainly feel energized and better. It's amazing what such a simple exercise can do to make you feel better. Another point about breathing is you'll find any meditating apps you use or any sleeping apps you use, you will notice that they generally start with a breathing exercise of some sort. So it definitely works. It's such a simple thing to do. I would recommend it to anybody. Doing a personal best every day or a PB every day. So I liken this to elite sports people. So elite sports people train every day to be better. Yeah, they don't expect to break a world record on day 1 of training. Okay, what they expect to do is each day do slightly better than they did the day before. And that's how I think all of us should be looking at mental health and well-being, is each day get better than you were the day before. Do a personal best every day. And that's really the analogy I'd like to use here. So a little progress each day adds up to big results. So that's the quote I put in there, which kind of personifies that. This is the 7 pillars of well-being. So base this around the word balance, obviously for balancing edges. I'm just going to quickly go through each of these. On each page, there is a phrase about do a personal best every day. There's also a couple of quotes for you to have a look at while I'm talking through the different points that are on each of these pillars. And hopefully some of these things will be, well, some of these things will be things you know about anyway, that you probably know you should be doing, maybe you are doing, but you can maybe do better. And really what I'm saying here is each of these things you know you should be doing and possibly are doing, but you can be doing better every day, do a personal best every day. That's what it's all about. So let me talk through these 7 pillars now. So the first one is better living. So eat smart, or it's called nourish to flourish. We all know the things we should eat, but also one of the bad coping strategies that some people use, including myself, is comfort eating, and we eat the wrong things in that sort of scenario. So trying to remember to eat the right things, it helps you to your mental health and your physical health, so it's a really good thing to do. Sleeping well, we should have a minimum of 7 hours sleep every night, really again for your own physical health and your mental health. So just make sure you get that 7 hours sleep. If you are struggling to sleep, there are apps you can get, plenty of apps you can get which will help you sleep. And also you could try that box breathing exercise we did earlier, which will also help you sleep, and other breathing exercises are available. Healthy habits, so moderating drink and drugs, moderating smoking. Again, we all know we should be doing that. Again, these are the sort of things that can be bad coping strategies. So just trying to get into the habit of moderating those things. Hydrate regularly. We all know we should be drinking 2 liters of water a day. I'm sure we all know we should be doing that, but just making sure we actually do that. And again, doing a personal best every day. Active living, so moving more. So it's been proven that 30 minutes strenuous exercise a day is as good for your mental health as an antidepressant pill. And this is about the serotonins in the brain. So basically what antidepressant pills are artificial serotonins. But what 30-minute strenuous exercise does a day is naturally gives you those same serotonins. So rather than putting it artificially into your body, put it into your body naturally by doing those 30 minutes of exercise. And strenuous will vary from person to person. For some person, that could be walking around the block. For some other people, that could be doing a 5,000 meter run, a 5K run. There's all sorts of different things for different people, but that 30-minute strenuous exercise would be defined as something that makes you get a sweat on, basically, being crude about it. Get a bit of a sweat on would be a strenuous exercise for somebody. And then again, doing a personal best every day. So we all know we should be doing that, but just doing a little bit better every day. A couple of years ago, for example, I think it was 4 years ago, my wife did the London Marathon, so did a lot of training for that. But since the London Marathon, she's done no running at all. And for the last 2 weeks, she's been every day doing a little bit more running. So going a bit further, a bit faster, again, doing a personal best every day. Live for living. So take notice of the world around you. This is not taking things for granted, really. I live in a really nice town called Knaresborough. It's a beautiful town with some lovely views, beautiful viaduct across the river, a ruined castle, beautiful views. And I could take that for granted because I live here. I could take it for granted. What I've tried to do now is when I look at that view, I try and take notice of it and try and appreciate it more. And it gives you more positivity. Just doing things like that gives you positivity in your brain and makes you look at other things more positively as well as a habit. Looking forward with hope rather than backward with regret. There's no point in looking back at what you did that you feel you could have done better. You can't change it, it's happened. What you've got to do is learn from that and make sure you move forward with those things as learning and do things better in the future. So looking at the positive side rather than the negative side. Do something for yourself. When we do the training, we talk to the first aiders about learning to look after themselves. And one of the things we tell them to do is have a happy hour every week. And that happy hour is something you do for yourself that you wouldn't normally do, that is of importance to you, that you, as I say, wouldn't normally do it. So it could be as simple as having a hot bath with candles and some soft music. It could be something like a yoga class that you wouldn't normally get to. Something that you could do for yourself that will help you calm down and be a coping strategy really in itself. Get help and support when you need it. It's a bit of a sexual stereotype, but I think we all would agree that women are better at talking to other women and other people than men are. And I know that's a bit of a stereotype, but it is unfortunately true, and it's demonstrated by the statistics about things like suicide and depression and so on. But everybody, whatever sex you are, you need to make sure you do get help and support and you ask questions where you can. Be sociable. Now, obviously, that's difficult at the moment with the current isolation situation, but we can use Zoom socially. We can use FaceTime, sorry. We can use other social media outlets to help ourselves be social. But it's one of the first things that goes if you're feeling a bit low. One of the first things you do is you isolate yourself from social occasions. So if you are feeling a bit low, force yourself to be a bit sociable, whether that is doing a Zoom call with somebody or whether that's we're doing things like family quiz nights and things like that. You know, just something to get you discussion with other people. Accomplishing, to recognize the wins in your life, recognize what you've done well. Give yourself targets that you can achieve if you're taking the box to say you've done something, and recognize those wins and recognize when you've done something really well. This is an idea that I got from Chris Evans on Radio 2 when he was on Radio 2. He writes a to-be list every day instead of a to-do list. And I think that's a really interesting concept. So today I'm going to be happy. Today I'm going to be empathetic. Today I'm going to be helpful. Whatever it might be that you're going to be that day. But I don't think you should stop doing a to-do list if it's something that helps you prioritize and focus. But I just would like you to think about doing a to-be list in the morning ahead of doing your to-do list. And when you do your to-do list, try and put some things on there that you can do fairly easily, they're going to make you feel good and give you that tick in the box that you've achieved it. Make yourself a priority once in a while. It's not selfish, it's necessary. This is the same point we made earlier about the happy hour, really. Is do something for yourself and not for somebody else. Non-negative living. So use those helpful coping strategies that we talked about on the stress container. So just use those helpful coping strategies on an everyday basis. Stop looking for reasons to be unhappy. Focus on the things you do have and the reasons you should be happy. So I'll give you an example, actually. This is a slightly offbeat example that I heard the other day. If a toddler falls over, a parent will generally say, ha, 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 well done, you fell over, great. So they don't cry because they've hurt themselves. The example I heard is, look, you've landed on your hand and your knees, so you must be a unicorn, which sounds weird, but it's a positive way about looking how they've fallen. So looking at the positive side of that fall rather than the negative side of it. Same thing could apply if you really want a Ferrari. Don't be unhappy because you haven't got a Ferrari, but be happy because the car you have got does everything you need it to do. So focus on those things that are positive rather than things that are negative. One small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. So don't wake up feeling negative. Try and come up with a positive thought in the morning of something you're going to achieve. And that's another reason for doing the to-be list rather than the to-do list, or as well as the to-do list, because positivity does breed positivity. And connected living, so this be social thing, even though you might not feel like being social because you're feeling a bit low, it's just forcing yourself into that social situation. Connecting with people, making sure you ask for advice if you need it, and connecting with your surroundings that I talked about in Knaresborough earlier on, me admiring the view in Knaresborough, anything like that you can do. It's all positive things, and it trains your brain to think positively. Energized living. So engaging with people, we talked about this being sociable. Engage with surroundings, we talked about appreciating your surroundings. Be positive and do a personal best every day. So there's my 7 sort of pillars for well-being. And I think if you can look at those things and pick 2 or 3 things out that you're not doing just now that you could do, or 2 or 3 things that you know you do a little bit but could do better, just pick on those things and try and make them better and get yourselves in a more positive mindset. Okay, so working from home. So it's about being structured and organized. I've been working from home for some time now, and I admit I struggled a bit to start with in terms of being efficient and effective. But what I found is being structured, trying to keep to a routine. My wife laughs at me because I have a routine at lunchtime where I finish at 12:15 more or less on the dot. I go and watch Bargain Hunt with my lunch, and then I walk the dog. Now that's a routine for me. It gives me a break. I enjoy watching Bargain Hunt, which is a bit sad, and I enjoy taking the dog for a walk. So for me, that hour, an hour and a half, whatever it takes at lunchtime, it refreshes me. It recharges my battery. It means when I come back from that hour and a half, I'm ready for whatever it takes to get things done. I'm more efficient and more effective because of that. So it's keeping to that routine, taking those regular breaks. They say you should take a minimum of 5 minutes every hour. just to get yourself away from the computer, make yourself a cup of tea, have a walk around the garden, whatever it might be. An idea is maybe to do a short check-in and check-out calls between managers and their teams at the start and the end of the workday. So like a 10 at 10 type thing. Very quick call in the morning. What are you planning to do today? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? What's going to happen as a result of that? And at the end of the day, how did you get on? Is there any problems you've got? What can we do for tomorrow? And it just helps you focus and helps you be energized for the day. Perhaps not an optional Q&A session for colleagues who are not used to working from home. So maybe mid-morning or something, just to say, look, I have a question and answers about what you should do and how you should query about working from home. Exercise, take time out to get some exercise. As I say, at lunchtime, I do that bargain hunt over my lunch and then I take the dog for a walk. So something like that all helps you to keep to a routine and helps you get that exercise. And in terms of sociability, we talked earlier about try and be social even though you may not feel like it. On the office side of things, why not have a coffee break, a virtual coffee break? I know I've seen some people online doing this, but it's something you could do quite easily. Have a Zoom call with a coffee and you all take a break at the same time. You're forced to take a break, which is a good thing, and you're forced to be sociable, which is a good thing. And some ideas is that sort of other ideas of things like sharing photo updates of the activities you've done that day, video calling rather than phone calling. I think we're all getting used to Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other formats that are available. I think it does help to be able to see people's faces rather than just the voice at the end of a call, or even worse, an email, which is extremely impersonal. And then maybe something like a daily or weekly online quiz for your teams, some way of keeping them energized and involved in what's going on. We're doing that, as I said earlier, we're doing that as a family. In fact, we've now got 3 quiz sessions with different parts of the family and friends' social life, which it's great because it gives you a bit of focus, it gives you a bit of sociability, but also my in-laws get to prepare for the quiz. They probably spend all day Saturday getting the quiz questions ready. So things like that, it all helps with the sociability and involvement with people. So self-isolation and social distancing, it's a different rhythm of life for people, isn't it? We're not used to this. And I think some people are dealing with it very well and some people are struggling with it more. And I think this is down to, we are sociable animals. We want to be in a social environment. We're not used to social distancing. So it's a change in what we're used to, and we're having to adapt to those things and being in touch with people in different ways. So using WhatsApp, Skype, FaceTime, Zoom, whatever it might be, rather than email and text is helpful. And creating that new daily routine that prioritizes looking after yourself. So making sure you do try and get some social time with your family. Some of the things we're doing, I've mentioned about the quiz nights, at least once a week doing a movie night. So we all come down, have some popcorn, watch a movie as a family. We do games night more or less every night. We do a games night. We'll be doing cards or Monopoly or Yahtzee or Connect Four or a combination of all of those. And again, it's just a different sort of daily routine that makes people be more sociable and gets that away from technology. Because my 2 boys, if we didn't do that, they'd just be on their iPads all the time. So just something else to try and help people be a bit more sociable. So uncertainty now. So uncertainty is a long-known cause of anxiety, and I don't think there's been any more uncertain times than there is right now. We have no idea how this is going to end. We have no idea if it's going to be a V recovery, a W recovery, a U recovery, whatever type of recovery they say there's going to be. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we can even open restaurants and bars when isolation stops because of the social distancing rules that will come out. So all these things are issues that we need to try and deal with, but we don't know what we're dealing with. So it's looking at the downtime, it's looking at how we can manage the downtime where uncertainty fills our everyday life. It's important to fill that time with things like I mentioned, the quiz nights and the games nights and the movie nights and things like that in your downtime. And try and let go of the thought and feeling about uncertainty, because we can't control it. It's one of those things that's in your stress container. You're not in control of it, so we can't get ourselves stressed about it because it doesn't do any good. It just wastes a lot of energy and time. So try and let go of the feeling because it will pass. And then the focus is focusing on our priorities, whether that's family or work. Focus on those things and try and move forward. Some of us are furloughed, so you're not allowed to do work stuff officially. So you need to look at how you focus on things and how you get through this. Some people are doing some self-learning, some improving themselves, looking at different webinars they can join, different courses they can do, business courses. I've actually enrolled myself to do a CBT course, cognitive behavior therapy course. So I've become a therapist in cognitive behavior as well. So that's something I've done to try and help myself through this period of time. And then achievements. I mentioned earlier, when you're doing a to-do list, put some things on there that you can relatively easily achieve and tick them off. Do them first, because if you achieve things, that'll make yourself feel more positive about the day and make it more likely you'll achieve the more difficult things that are on your list as well. I love this quote. So this is a quote by H. Jackson Brown Jr. as it says there, when you can't change the direction of the wind, adjust your sails. So this is about, we can't control what direction we're going in right now. That's controlled by lots of other factors. So what we do need to do is adjust our sails and make the best use of the weather we're in. Another quote is a Chinese proverb, when the winds of change blow, some people build walls, other people build windmills. So let's all go out there and build our windmill and make use of this wind that's blowing and make use of it and do something positive as a result of it. And this is a poem, I think, you probably call it a poem. It's a lady called Sophie Cross. I follow her on social media. I used to work with her a few years ago, and she's got a marketing company called Thoughtfully. It's a great name for a marketing company. And she produced this on social media a couple of weeks ago, and I added it into the presentation then. So I'm going to read it out because I think it's great words. It's time. It's time to evolve. It's time to press reset. It's time to learn new things. Your ability to be good at something relies on your ability to be bad at something first. It's time to smash it and build it again. It's time to decide if you really want to honor the things you say you hold as your values. And I just love the words of that. And I think for me, it personifies what I've just been talking about in terms of looking at what we can do to move forward with our lives and change our mindset, really. Say it's a new normal. Let's look at what we can do to make things better. I put a link in there. I know you can't click on the link, but there's a link in there for things to do when businesses are being a bit slow. If you go into thoughtfully.co.uk, she's got a blog site in there. Again, there's something in there that might help you with things to do when things are in the downtime. This is a model that I saw, again, a couple of weeks ago. I've added this into the presentation relatively recently as well. It's a guy called Tim Sayers on LinkedIn. And what this is about is our mindset is a mixture of 4 basic mindset types: contained, optimistic, prudent, and engaged. We'll have a lead preference, so a default setting. So all of us will have one of these things as the way we look upon our lives. You might be a very prudent person, might be a very engaged person, might be a very contained person, might be a very optimistic person. We'll all have that as a default setting. But what we're really talking about here is we need to look at all 4 of those things and decide how we're going to move forward in this downtime, what we can do to move forward in all 4 areas. So in difficult times, it's important to consider perspective from all mindsets and give a broader and clearer perspective on the situation we're facing and how to proceed in a more balanced way. So using this framework here to look at a given situation, whether it's a challenge or an opportunity, considering it from a perspective of each mindset, providing balance and allowing you to move forward in a proactive, positive way, whilst remaining mindful of the current realities. So here's one that was completed. So you'll see here, the contained one might be communicating and looking out for each other. The optimistic one might be working on those new projects that have been waiting to be done. A prudent one might be what further obstacles might we face. So looking at scenario planning. And then engaged might be how I judge others and my expectations of what is possible. So anything you're looking at really is to try and look at from these 4 different perspectives. And what I particularly like you to think about is how we can be optimistic at this time, because obviously it's a very difficult time, very challenging time. So it's looking at the positive side of things and being optimistic. When we're looking at any of the problems we've got to do is looking at the bright side of those things and trying to be optimistic. This nearly finished now, guys. This slide is just showing you some resources that I think will be useful for you. The first one is a website called EventWell. EventWell is a not-for-profit organization for the events industry, but the resources that are on there are useful for anybody, whether you're in the events industry or not. If you go into eventwell.org, you'll see a whole load of resources in there about mindfulness, about books you can read. That's what bibliotherapy means, basically, is reading books, and general well-being tips that you can look at. There's a really good resource in there. There is an events sort of slant to the website, but the actual resources are relevant for everybody. The next one down is NHS Every Mind Matters. It's a site where there's a quiz that you fill out, and basically you talk about yourself. They ask you questions about yourself. You put in how you're feeling about different things, and it comes out with a score and gives you some recommendations of what you might do to make yourself feel better in those areas that you're currently struggling. Really recommend it. Very easy to do, and they then keep in touch with you regularly with tips and helpful things to do. Then I've got 3 sort of charity websites that you might be interested in speaking and looking at. There's the Mind info line. So Mind is a mental health website. Lots of stuff on there to support you in various areas, and lots of resource in there. Rethink is more of a solution-based guidance in there. Again, very useful information. And the last one, the Samaritans, and hopefully we don't feel we need to go that far, but the Samaritans are a really useful resource, particularly in a crisis situation. So I would recommend any of those sites, and there are others, but those are the main ones that I would recommend if anyone is particularly struggling for anything at all. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like to think about things we've talked about today, and pick 3 things that you're going to do to rebalance your life. So it could be something from your stress container. It could be getting things out of your stress container that shouldn't be in there because you can't control them. It could be doing the breathing exercises. It could be something that was in the 7 pillars of well-being. It could be something that I put in there about working from home. Whatever it might be, just think about 3 things you're going to do to rebalance, and try and do those things better every day from now on. So just give you a moment to do that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to put a slide up which gives you my contact points. If anyone does want to speak to me about anything at all, feel free to get in touch with me. I am a trained mental health first aider and mental health first aid instructor. I can help people with different things on that side of things. So if anyone does want to get in touch with me, feel free to do that. My website is available as well. There's some things in there that might be useful to you. And that's really the presentation over. So I'm going to put it back over to Purusha to have a chat now.
Gavin, thank you very much. You covered a lot there in 40 minutes. So thank you very, very much for sharing all of that. I scribbled quite a few notes down myself, and I think it's really important to recognise that we're all in very different stages currently at the moment, and there are some people that are juggling work, or they're juggling ill relatives, or they are managing homeschooling, or whatever it may be, or the prospect that they may not be able to return to work if they're on furlough. So I think it's really clear that everybody's in different places, and just recognising that the small steps, whatever it may be, and if that's just going to an exercise class, or just getting to the end of the day and feeling like you've made a few steps forward, I think is really good for one's mental well-being. One of the things that I had forgotten, that I haven't done it for a while actually, but I used to last year for a period of time with my children, is I used to start practicing gratitude with them, and I used to ask them at bedtime, when we were just lying down having a little cuddle before they go to bed, what were the 3 things that had made them happy, or that they'd found joy in the day. And I think it's one of those things that quite often, even if you've had a really bad day, there's always at least 3, if not more, things that you can find joy in, and whether that's just you've enjoyed the weather, or whether you've enjoyed a cup of tea, or quite often for me it's a cuddle with my children and sort of 5 minutes of just indulging in time with them without racing around trying to cook a meal or do something else. And so for me, that was one thing that I found worked really well and was very helpful. Tracy has talked about being out in nature. I think, again, lots of people mention how the benefit of being outside amongst trees and grass, etc., really helps, unless you, of course, have hay fever. But and it's great actually that the government have announced that a lot of the parks will be opening up again that were previously closed for those that live in cities. I think in terms of Gavin, bearing in mind we're all at different stages now. If people could choose to do one or two things today from everything that you've talked about today to have a positive impact on their well-being, what would you say would be those one or two things that are really easy, small steps for people to bring into their life?
For me, it is getting out into the fresh air, like Tracy said, getting some fresh air in the nature, and for me, walking the dog, because I have to walk the dog anyway, so I may as well walk for a dog in a nice surroundings with good nature around me. And we've got a lake. We're very lucky we live near a lake, so we can walk around the lake, and that really does help me. But I do think it's different for different people. So it's finding those things that work for you, those coping strategies, finding out the coping strategies that work for you. That's probably the first thing, is getting those coping strategies in place that work for you and remembering to do them. I think the second thing I would say is making sure you do take those breaks. And it sounds counterintuitive that you're working less hard because you're taking breaks, but actually you get more done by doing that. You're more effective and more efficient. And I didn't believe that. I was one of these guys when I was in corporate world. I would sit at my desk, eat my lunch, never have a break, graft. Now, since working from home, I force myself to take that lunch break, and I'm actually much more efficient, effective, and I feel better. I'm not as stressed. So I think it's really making sure you do take those breaks.
I think one of the things that's really interesting at the moment, and you talked a little bit about how people are feeling isolated. We've had a lot of people finding that if they've been put on furlough, that the anxiety is creeping in around that they're not able to be in touch with their employers, or their employers aren't in touch with them. And so this uncertainty that you spoke about earlier is kind of manifesting itself and growing all of the time. And where those that are working, it's easy for them to come together and have a virtual coffee break as a team, and all to stop down tools and stop work at the end of the day. For those that are on furlough, there's obviously lots of different advice around what you are allowed to do and what you aren't allowed to do. If somebody wants to be in touch with their employer or their teams or colleagues and things like that, have you got any suggestions about how those people can either connect with other people within their own industry, within their own colleagues or teams or managers, and what advice you would give to those people that want to sort of abate that anxiety, try and understand a bit more around some certainties, and yeah, just any general advice you've got around that.
For those of you who are in the events industry, generally I think the HBAA is a good format, because it's like-minded people getting together, and they're doing a lot of webinars and panel discussions, so various things that they're doing that you can get involved in. So that would be something that I think would be good to keep you involved in the industry. But it could be, I think if companies aren't paying attention to their furloughed staff, I think that's quite poor, really. So I think companies have got a part to play here, so they should be doing a weekly call with their furloughed staff, maybe a Zest call, and maybe people who are furloughed could suggest that to their companies, because I think that would be a very positive thing to do. Just keep them informed about what's happening with the company, because that will stop not stop the uncertainty, but maybe lower the anxiousness levels about how the company is doing and how they're getting through this crisis. Just communicate with people better. I know my son has been furloughed, and he only works paydays and holidays on a casual basis, 0-hour contract. He's been furloughed. He's getting 25 quid a week for doing nothing. He's delighted. But they're sending him an email every week, updating them with what they're doing as a company and how they're dealing with things, and how the staff can get more information if they want it. So I think that's very proactive from that company. It's a national pub chain. It's nothing, not rocket science to me. It's just common sense, and if they want to look after the staff, they should be doing that, really. So I would recommend that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've got Dorothy that's said here that in his business, their executive team have devised a virtual town hall with Q&A, and they've posted it on their employee engagement platform. And just saying it's been very, very well received by employees, who, including those that have been furloughed. So again, I think for anybody out there who is perhaps managing a team or is responsible for leading teams, again, if you've got internal platforms that people are able to access while they're on furlough, I think we're just about there on time, and I'd really like to thank everybody for coming today. I mean, the things that I've taken away, I've got a whole list of things here, and I think I loved your quote: "A little progress each day adds up to big results." And I think whatever that progress is, whether that's going for a walk, getting some exercise, eating something different that's nutritionally beneficial for you, connecting with friends or people or family or somebody you haven't been in touch with for a while, and reaching out, and all those different things that you said could really help with a breakthrough in terms of supporting your well-being. I think just everybody's got to be kind to themselves and just recognize that some people are raring to go and they want to learn new things, but some people just need to take it one step at a time. And so that little step does add up to big results. So I think that's a really big takeaway today. So thank you very, very much, Gavin, for joining us today, and thank you everybody for giving up an hour of your time. Stay well, stay safe, and do let us know if there's anything that you'd like us to see. Come and drop into our coffee shops, which run every day at 3:30, just for a chit chat. There's no agenda or purpose, just other than connecting with people and in a sort of nice, friendly space. So have a good rest of the day, and thank you once again to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.